Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. Hope everybody's having a great start to their work week out there on your Monday morning. In today's weather forecast, we'll be talking about a significant storm system bringing catastrophic rainfall totals across Southern California here today, and an upcoming pattern change by the middle of February that will prove wintry weather back into the picture across the eastern two-thirds of the country. As we go deeper into the month, we'll be diving into those details later on in today's weather forecast. But taking you outdoors here this morning and looking at those low temperatures, looking across the board here, this is not too shabby still for early February standards for the morning hours. And we've been saying this morning after morning here on this channel. And just look at these temperatures. To the north, we're dealing with temperatures a few degrees below freezing. We're talking middle to upper 20s. Further south across the southern U.S. and the southeast, temperatures this morning are into the 30s, 40s, and even a few 50s out there to start off the morning here. And we're going to rapidly warm up across the United States once again this afternoon. The lack of snow cover across the country will make temperatures soar back into the 40s up here across the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and the Great Lakes regions. Further south, we're well into the 50s, 60s, and again, some 70s out here, especially down toward the Phoenix region and southern Arizona, the Rio Grande Valley and South Central Texas, and southern portions of Florida into the 70s this afternoon. Now let's look at the storm reports here. Speaking of Florida, yesterday, a very volatile atmosphere did unfold with severe weather. We actually had 3 tornadoes reported across the southeast on your Sunday, February 4th. One of those across far southern Georgia, and the 2 other ones across far northern Florida there, and even a few hail and wind reports to go along with that. So a very active Sunday out there across Georgia and Florida. But let's look back here at the past 7 days with our precipitation amounts, and you can see generally across the West Coast, Washington State, Oregon through California, down through the Four Corners region here in the desert Southwest, and then across the southern and southeast U.S., and then up the East Coast. We have seen a lot of precipitation over the past 7 days, over the past week here, and this is due to that El Nino pattern. And if you guys aren't familiar with a typical El Nino pattern, it proves that we have warmer temperatures to the north. We have high pressure building across Canada and the northern tier of the United States with a less active polar jet stream. That means it's not going to be pulling a lot of that colder air down, but we are seeing a drier pattern though across the north, especially there into the Great Lakes, the Midwest, and the Ohio Valley in these patterns, and then a very persistent Pacific jet stream underneath, pulling in that eastern Pacific moisture, pulling in some colder air underneath that high pressure system with those low pressure storm tracks from the desert Southwest through the southern U.S. and then up the East Coast in these El Nino patterns. So we're going to be looking ahead to that here in today's video. But if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns across North America and the tropics upcoming for tropical weather season through 2024, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And I would love to hit 100,000 subscribers by spring, and you can help me get there simply by subscribing to the channel down below. Also be very important to press the like button down below. It helps out more than you know. So let's look at our current weather conditions across the country this morning. Notice we still have some rain shower and isolated thunderstorm activity across the Dixie Valley region from Mississippi into Alabama and Georgia, even a couple showers and storms over into South Carolina this morning. And then the same thing can be true down into Florida. Not looking at really any severe weather per se down here today, but our attention is turning out west. Lots of moisture. We have an atmospheric river pummeling Southern California here this morning. We've already seen reports of some significant flooding and significant rainfall totals. So let's zoom out the picture and show you the jet stream, and look at how volatile this atmosphere is. This jet stream, you can follow it back across the central Pacific and to Eastern Asia. We definitely have this pattern where we have a lot of these low pressure systems tracking along the highway, and the highway in this sense is the jet stream, and you can see that punching right into Southern California, right into the desert Southwest and the southern U.S. as we go through the next 24 to 48 hours. So let's look here at our precipitation chances through the day today. Starting to dry out a little bit across the southeast. We could see a couple isolated stronger thunderstorms into far southern Florida. They have a marginal risk down there into Miami and the Key West area. Probably not that big of a deal. Certainly not as big of a deal as yesterday where we saw a couple of tornadoes. But then off to the west, it's all about the big storm out west. Higher elevation snows, the atmospheric river across Los Angeles there, down into the Santa Barbara region, San Diego. Very heavy rainfall here through the day today. Going through tonight, we're just continuing to see very heavy precipitation, higher elevation snows for the southern Sierras, and Los Angeles just getting pummeled by some heavy rainfall going through tonight. Then as we go into your Tuesday timeframe tomorrow, we start to see that precipitation slowly move off to the east, but it will be a slow process going through the day. And then finally by Tuesday night, we start to slowly shut off that precipitation valve for Southern California and move that precipitation further east into Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado, with more of those heavier snows into the Rockies as we go through Tuesday night. So let's look ahead at those precipitation totals going through the middle of the week. This takes you through Wednesday, February 7th. And notice the southeast, we have some rainfall, maybe an isolated half-inch to inch of rain, especially there for southern portions of Florida. But looking off to the west, California in particular, and even southern Nevada getting some very heavy precipitation through midweek. And zooming it in here, I'm very concerned about Southern California, especially near the coast here. Santa Barbara to Los Angeles to San Diego here, very heavy, very significant rainfall totals. Some of these areas here in the white and grays could be seeing double-digit totals, and this is on top of what we've already seen in these areas. Already, we've seen a few inches of rain in these areas, and we're going to be adding on another 6 to 12 inches on top of that through the next couple of days, and this raises concern for a moderate to a high risk for flash flooding over the next 24 hours for Southern California, and this includes the downtown region of Los Angeles and getting closer there towards Santa Barbara and also San Diego in this pattern. And looking at it going into Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe, we still have that slight risk for flash flooding for Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, San Diego, but that slight risk pushing further east toward the Phoenix region as we go in towards that midweek time frame. So just to understand what those excessive rainfall risk categories are, well, you're in a moderate risk. That's numerous flash floods that are likely, and they could be significant as well. This could affect bigger and larger rivers across that region. When you get into a high risk for flash flooding, widespread flash floods are expected, and they could be severe and widespread, and they don't normally are areas that don't normally flood could flood in high-risk areas, so definitely something to keep an eye on. Turn around, don't drown across Southern California. Very volatile atmosphere over the next couple of days. And on top of that, not only seeing the heavy rain, but the very heavy snows out here, the watershed out west getting its fair share of snowfall supply here. And looking at the Sierras, I mean, we're already seeing a few feet of snowfall. We've already seen, we're going to see another 1 to 3 feet of snow, especially for the central and southern Sierras as we go through Wednesday, February 7th. Even some heavier snows there into southern Nevada, southern Idaho, getting into western Wyoming there, and a couple of those areas into Utah and Arizona, especially into northern Arizona, seeing several inches of snow there north of Phoenix in those higher elevations as well. So definitely seeing some travel troubles out west. If you do travel further west into the Four Corners region, the Rockies, especially down into the central southern Sierras and into southern Nevada, just make sure you are prepared for those major to extreme travel impacts out there, and this could be near impossible travel the higher you go into elevation there in the Sierras with all of that snowfall. Now let's look at the pattern upcoming toward the middle and late portion of the week. We have a high pressure up here. You can see the reds and oranges. That usually indicates drier weather, but typically warmer weather as well, and that's across eastern Canada and the northeast U.S. Notice down here we have the blues across the west and the desert southwest. This is a low pressure trough, and this typically brings more active weather, but also cooler weather to the picture mid to late week. But let's look at our temperature anomalies during that mid-late mid to late week time frame, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday time frame, and into the weekend. Notice east of the Rockies, we are well above normal, especially up here into eastern Canada, into Quebec, into Ontario, and the upper Midwest in particular, seeing those well above normal temperature anomalies, well north of 20 degrees above normal. And then out west across California, Nevada, the Four Corners region, we are seeing below normal temperature anomalies, a good handful of 10 to 20 degrees below normal out here. So what this means for our temperatures moving forward through mid and late week, here is your Wednesday, February 7th time frame. Notice east of the Rockies, a lot of these areas are snow free. We don't have a lot of snow on the ground. Temperatures are going to be warming very quickly, much like we see today across these areas. We're going to see temperatures into the 40s and 50s on Wednesday. Going into late week, look at the 60-degree line. St. Louis, 61, 58, not too far off from 60 there in Indianapolis, and 56 all the way up into Detroit on Friday. And look at the weekend as we go into Saturday, February 10th. Yes, we are seeing 60 all the way up into New York City and Long Island, 58 degrees up toward the Hartford region and Boston. So definitely seeing some very warm temperatures for early February standards. But let's look at the jet stream as well. You can start to see that jet stream dips further south than we even see it today later in the week. And this starts to take on a little bit more of a northward push. So we have that ridge off east, we have the trough out west, and that highway, if you will, in the jet stream is going to propel our new low pressure system later in the week. And you can see that starting off here in the northern Rockies, northeastern portions of Wyoming on Wednesday as a 994 millibar low. Typically, low pressure systems lower than 1,000 millibars are strong low pressure systems. So we're already seeing it at a 994 on Wednesday. Late in the week, down to a 993 up here into portions of the Arrowhead of Minnesota. So definitely seeing a very strong low pressure system further north. And that's going to allow to pull that warm, moist, and unstable air further north. So here we go on Wednesday. Heavy snows out in the Rockies. Definitely seeing those 1 to 2 inch per hour snow rates across Montana, Wyoming, portions of Colorado, down into northwest New Mexico, Idaho, Utah, and Arizona. Just a lot of snow out there. We're watching some rain showers drizzle across the Dakotas, Nebraska, and down through the western plains on Wednesday. Going into Thursday, that low pressure system getting going. The northwest side of these lows, especially this time of year, you look for the colder air to come in from Canada, and you start to see that snow line for Manitoba, Ontario, and southern Saskatchewan. And that snow line could bring itself further south into North Dakota and eastern Montana as well, but it's all rain across the upper Midwest and the Mississippi Valley with this system on Thursday. Then going into Friday, again, we have enough cold air and that freezing line dropping south into the Midwest. We start to see some colder air coming in, but the lack of moisture with it on the backside will only lead to a few flurries and snow showers, probably not that big of a winter storm, but all rain from the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, all the way down to the Gulf Coast on the warm side of the system on Friday, and we can see that happening into the weekend as well. So let's look at our total precipitation amounts with this next system mid to late week. So this is from Wednesday, February 7th, right straight through the weekend on Sunday, February 11th. And notice, it's not going to be a lot of rain, but beneficial rain. So we'll take anything we can get here across the upper Midwest as we have drought ongoing, even across the deep south. Look at the swath here from Georgia, Tennessee, back through portions of Alabama, Mississippi, southern Arkansas, Louisiana, and eastern Texas, really right through Dixie Alley here. We could be seeing widespread 1 to 3 inch rain amounts through mid and late week. And the snow line further north, we start to see a few inches of snow from southern Canada into the very far upper Midwestern areas into northern Minnesota and the northwoods of Wisconsin, and then back through portions of the Dakotas and Montana, and obviously back into the Rockies with the cold air aloft back here. But let's look ahead towards the middle of the month. So if you're waiting and you're wondering where winter has gone, well, we're going to explain it to you right here. So here's the NAO. This is the North Atlantic Oscillation, and notice it's positive, barely though, but it is positive right now. It is going to drop negative or at least neutral as we go towards the middle of February. And we look at the AO, the Arctic Oscillation. This is in control of our colder air. When that drops negative, right now it's positive, but once it drops negative here toward the middle of the month, that's going to allow that colder air that they've been seeing across northern Canada and Alaska to dump southward as Alaska starts to warm up. And the reason why Alaska warms up is the PNA, the Pacific North American pattern here right now is positive, and it's going to continue to remain positive here as we go through that period. So let's explain this to you on the maps. You can see from Monday, February 12th through that Sunday, February 18th timeframe, essentially mid-February into that third week of the month. Here's the positive PNA. You can see Alaska starts to warm up. You can see Western Canada starts to warm up, and the Pacific Northwest as well. That's that positive PNA. The negative AO, the Arctic Oscillation, you can see that blue line right here curving across eastern Canada. That's going to bring that colder air down from Canada into the Great Lakes and into interior New England with that negative AO, and the negative NAO, the negative North American Oscillation here across the North Atlantic Oscillation into the North Atlantic Ocean here. You can see with those blues and those grays, that means that we typically see lower pressure off the eastern U.S. with that active storm track. So let's look here at our temperature outlook during that time frame, and still an El Nino look. The West Coast and the Pacific Northwest likely above normal temperatures, and the upper Midwest, really the northern tier of the country, above normal. We see below normal across much of the Rockies, the Four Corners region, and the southern southeastern U.S. during this period. And looking at this as well, now at the surface, the precipitation outlook really doesn't resemble a lot of big systems across the east, right? When you look at this, you're saying, well, it's probably drier across the east with these brown shaded colors. Well, yes, it is going to be dry between the 12th and the 18th, but not every one of those days will be dry. Just when you average out that week, we're likely to remain drier across the east during this pattern, but we're still seeing some very wet conditions down here into Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, especially down here into southern and southwest Texas, and getting near the Gulf Coast down towards Florida, much like we have been seeing with this recent El Nino pattern. So let's look at our total precip amounts, and you can see here the ensemble guidance is painting a decent picture for some snowfall and just precipitation in general coming back for the eastern and southeastern U.S. as we get into that third week or that mid-month time frame, the 12th through the 18th. And notice this is going to get a lot better for our drought conditions across the south as well. Notice we start to see more of the drought remains, but does improve across the lower and middle Mississippi Valley. That's what we like to see. We've had a lot of rainfall down here. We're going to continue to see a lot of rainfall as we go through this pattern. And with the cold air coming in, remember, we have that negative AO, the Arctic Oscillation, dropping that cold air from Canada down into the U.S., and we have that negative North Atlantic Oscillation, the negative NAO, starting to trend a little bit further negative as well. That means our storm track will be across the eastern U.S., bringing that cold air down with moisture. There we go. We got snowfall for interior New England and parts of the Great Lakes and the Appalachians. This is the European ensemble guidance. Looking over at the American ensemble guidance, the GEFS ensemble, very similar picture here, maybe more snow across the Midwest in this type of ensemble, and also the CMC, the Canadian ensemble guidance, is on board as well. And this is just an average of amounts during this period, because all of these members, this takes into account around 30 to 51 members depending on which model you're looking at. So definitely something to keep in mind as we go deeper into February. So we'll continue to keep you covered here with accurate weather forecasts, and to be sure to get more of these forecasts in the future, subscribe to the channel down below and help me get to 100,000 subscribers by spring, and you can do that by subscribing below. Make sure to press the like button down below. It helps out more than you know. Share this video with friends, family, and on social media, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Monday out there.